Welcome to another episode of the Fire Forged Leader podcast. This month is Suicide Awareness Month. In the United States, there are over 48,000 people who take their own lives annually. And 80% of these numbers are men. The statistics don't change much as you traverse the globe. In Australia, where my guest is from, 76% of the suicides are men. It's not much different. In this episode, my guest is Shane Butler. He is a man who has dealt with the darkness like many of us men. But he has found something that has brought him out of that darkness. Shane is an underground miner, a strong, bearded man that does hard work with his hands. He boxes, he practices Jiu-Jitsu, and many other things expected of a man. Here's the twist, though. Yoga is what brought him out of the dark part of his life. And now he uses that methodology, yoga, to help other very masculine men to work through their lives. Now, I understand that yoga is something that some may take issue with due to their own personal faith. And I don't have a problem with that. But I do encourage you to listen to this episode anyways. Because in this episode, we unpack how this has worked for Shane. And regardless of your beliefs, this model can be applied in multiple arenas. And at the end of the day, we talk a lot about this topic, but Shane is actually doing something about it. As we explore this further, I want you to know you are not alone. And I want to remind you that there is always a path forward. Now let's get to work.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in the Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Fire Forged Leader podcast. Today, we're having a special episode with Shane Butler, and I'm going to let him introduce himself here in a second. But I just wanted to take you down a couple statistics that I looked up. This month, of course, is Suicide Awareness Month. And in the United States, we lose 48,000 people per year by suicide. 80% of those are men. Now, so that you don't have to take out your calculators, that is 38,400 men per year that are taking their own lives. Now, Shane, my guest today, is from Australia. Of course, we have 333 million people in the United States. So the numbers don't seem as drastic if I was to say them out loud, because Australia's only got 27 million people. But they're at the same rates that the United States are. They lose 3,250 people approximately to suicides, with 76% of those being men. Now, I call that all out because my guest today, Shane Butler, amazing man, and he was very, very creative in how he chose to attack this epidemic. So with that being said, Shane, can you give us kind of a 40,000 foot view of who you are, where you came from, and, you know, just kind of what you're doing out there in the industry?
Yeah, right on, Steve. Thanks very much for having me on the podcast to start off with. My name's Shane Butler. I'm from Queensland, Australia. I'm an underground miner, ex-army serviceman, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I came to a point in my life where I was worn out. I was buggered. I've had enough. Stuff was starting to add up. I was drained. I was depressed. I was anxious, and I was starting really fast to slide down that same rabbit hole as a lot of my mates have been, and a lot of them never came back from, taking their lives, or went down the other path of alcohol or drug addiction. And I was burnt out. And my wife is a social worker, so she suggested one night I try giving yoga a go. And I was like, bloody hell, mate, this is a bit wild. What could this ancient art, how could it help me? I'm a big hard miner. I box. I pump weights. I do stuff that yoga couldn't help me with, not a chance in hell. But I made a promise to her, and I went and gave it a go. And then from the very first lesson, we'll go into that later, but from the very first lesson, I felt a change in me, and it changed me positively. And I was like, holy hell, man, my mind's still, I feel good. I'm going to pursue this. And then that's how it all started, yeah. I started becoming a yoga student, and then later on my passion turned into become a teacher. And I really wanted to step up as a leader and represent men that had been in my position and show them that there's other ways out, and there's always an answer, there's always a door open. And if I could do it, if I could change, then bloody anyone could, mate. Yeah, so that's how it all started.
Yeah, so bringing us up to today, you're actually taking your teaching of yoga to underground mining, which, by the way, one thing I didn't get into is in the United States, if you look at and I would assume that Australia is the same way, but if you look at the highest rates of suicide, they go veterans, construction workers, mining, and quarries, right? And mining and quarries you could probably put together, right? And it would take at least the number 2 spot.
Yeah, exactly, Steve. It's bang on, mate. It's pretty much the same statistics. Veterans, construction and mining workers, quarry workers, first responders. Yeah, definitely up there in the highest percentage of them. And unfortunately, it's one every 1.6 days in the mining and construction industry. We lose a man to suicide. Obviously, suicide isn't prejudice. It doesn't decide who to take. So men and women are both affected. But as you started at the start of your podcast, you stated some facts, and it's pretty much the same. Men are just I don't know. I guess it's a pride thing. It's we feel that we have to hold it tight to us, to our chest. There might not be an answer, whatever it is, mate. But the statistics don't lie, and it's extremely high, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, just kind of diving into that with men, right? I mean, traditionally what we do is we protect, our tribes, right? We provide for them. We go to work, we earn a paycheck, we hunt, just going back in time, we've always provided. And, we basically lead the household in most environments, right? So we take a lot on our shoulders to protect everybody else from it, going back to the first point. So
yeah, exactly, mate, yeah.
I mean, for me, it's easy to see. I do a lot of work in the men's sphere because there's a lot of work to do yet. But I really I really like what you were saying about, I'm a manly man, I box and, all this stuff. And, I made this promise to my wife and that's why I got into yoga, right?
Yeah.
Which I find really interesting, but honorable at the same time. So, when, it wasn't you that came up with the yoga idea. It was your wife, and it was honoring your wife to fulfill this promise. So I would imagine that would be just like all the rest of the people that you help with yoga, right?
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah. I haven't come across someone that's in much more of a different situation than I am. So the workplace stresses, the everyday life, it's pretty much the same story. It's just a different person you're talking to that might look different or have some sort of other different factors. Past traumas, anything like that. And it all adds up and it all comes to a boiling point. But it is quite funny. Say, where I live in Mount Isa, Queensland, it's a big mining town. It's mining and cattle. And I guess you could say the men are manly. That's what, if you describe like a Queensland man, it'd be a big beard, rough, fight, drink, all that sort of stuff, mate. Yeah, but also they keep their emotions bottled up as well. So
right,
that's another thing they all have in common, And when I started doing yoga, I knew that if it could change me, if it could help me, it could help anyone. But I didn't know how to implement that yet. I didn't want to be preachy about it. I didn't want to broadcast it for everyone. So I waited until I was at a place where I could lead and learn from experience and then pass that on to the other people in my workplace. So that was really, really good, and that's the path I took on it, yeah. So from there, I started inviting people to classes, and then my passion was to always intercept that men's yoga. So as soon as I'd finished my yoga training, I come straight back, and that was one of the first things I did was make a men's only yoga class. And I knew I'd get heaps of static for it. I knew I was like, oh man, this is crazy. So how's the community gonna what will they feel about this? And it was the exact opposite of what I perceived. So the community got behind me. It was huge. I had men coming up to me saying, man, this is cool, like I've always wanted to try this. My wife does it, or I read something about it, or I've heard about it. The approach wasn't, man, I've got a problem, I want to come and vent it. It was, you've got a solution for this, you've done it, you've been through it, you've got a solution, so I want to be a part of that, can I give it a go? And then that's been my approach the whole way, and I think that it draws more people in, and then it lets people feel firsthand the effects, the changes, and it plants a lot of seeds, man. It's really good. So it started in it started in February this year, and year to date, so I've had almost 90 men on the mats in front of me, which is absolutely crazy, considering I know of about 2 other people in this town that have done yoga that are men, and the majority of them are return clients, or return students, or brothers, whatever you want to call them, and nearly every single one of them after it have this moment of clarity. They're like, my mind's clear. Like, what do I do with it? And I'm like, well, you can do whatever you want, man. But You know, like it's not something that you just do once. It's always here. It's not going anywhere. And as long as I'll be kicking around, I'll be trying to help as many people as I can. Yeah, it's wicked. I love it.
That's awesome. So going back in your experience when you first did that class and you got connected with it.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people who are going to do yoga and there's some people who aren't. I'm not one of those guys. I like jiu-jitsu instead, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what was it that really connected you to it?
Well, I can't put it in words, but I can explain the feeling and the what was going through my head and the relief I got. So I was sitting in the car. I went down to the local shop and I bought a $5 yoga mat. And I sat in the car park, and I was like, yeah, righto. I got to do this. I promised my wife. And surely there'll be someone there that knows me and that will say, you know, Shane didn't come in, or I seen him sitting there, or... So I'm sitting in the car, man. I'm anxious as hell. I'm sweating. Like my shirt is starting to sweat. I've got the bad breath going on. I'm hyperventilating. I feel like I'm going to spew. I'm like, what the hell have I got myself into? And I was like, oh, man. So I just waited, and it was like 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 people go in there, and they're all ladies. And I'm like, righto, here we go. I'm going to go in. So I go in, and I walk through this corridor, and there's green plants, there's incense, there's the soft sound of a mantra. I could just hear it. And I walk through this corridor in the yoga hub, Mount Isa, and I walk up the stairs. And as soon as I get to the door, I'm greeted by this little Irish lady called Janine Luck, who later becomes my mentor. And she said, how you going? And I was like, yeah, I'm going good. She obviously could see I wasn't going good. But by the time I walked in and laid on the mat, my anxiety had halved. I reckon it was more than halved. There was a sense of relief. There was this overcoming feeling of peace, relaxing. There was no one yelling. There was no loud music, no overwhelming masculinity. It was just relaxation and clarity, and I didn't know what to do. So I just laid down and I just received it. And after the lesson, I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? Like, that was my feeling. Like, and that same scenario is played out with nearly every man that's come to my classes. So whether or not they explain it to you in them same words, or they just sit there in this moment of clarity after the class, like, man, this is cool. And then you know that you've just helped someone, you know. So you've broken through to something that, I don't know, man, you can call it whatever you want, but something that helped you, a tool, anything like that, yeah. So that was the feeling.
So a couple of things that I took out of what you just said was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but it really sounded like it was a total change of environment, right? So you went in there and, you know, there was different smells, there was different sounds, there was different everything than what you were used to. And the word that I really picked up in what you said is that you received it. You know, you didn't fight it, you received it.
Yeah, that's spot on, Steve. Yeah. And it wasn't a hard thing to do either, mate. It was easy. It was it took zero effort. So my perception that I'd be going in there and I'd have to do a headstand or a backflip or something like that, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd feel worse than when I went in there, or even worse altogether, I'd be one man amongst 20 ladies, and I'd feel like a creep, you know. But it was a total opposite. It was as opposite as it gets. Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you know, going back to the Jiu-Jitsu, you know, like I was talking about, I was just kidding, by the way. I do some meditation and different things,
Yeah.
but on the mat in Jiu-Jitsu, I get the same feeling, you know, because, I mean, I'm a 6'3", I'm 250 pounds, right?
Yeah, you're not small.
Yeah, I'm a pretty
thick
large
dude.
man, right?
Yeah.
And there's this expectation that, you know, as that guy, I should be out there whooping, but that's not true, right?
Yeah.
But I find that same sense of peace. I didn't for a long time, but at this point now in my jiu-jitsu journey, when I'm on the bottom and someone has got me in a choke or whatever else, I let my body relax and I just breathe, right? It's uncomfortable as all get out, but I just breathe.
Yeah, that's 100%, and I've felt that. I do a bit of rolling myself, and that's a position that I love, man. I love being in a bad position, and then I relax. And then my partner at the time will be like, I knew you were in a good place because I just felt your body relax. And that's when I get clarity when I'm on the mats as well. I'll think about the next position, and then I'll react, and then I'm out, you know. So I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it, knowing that your role, is that really the same type of sensation that you got with yoga as well?
It is, mate. Yeah. It's that point, like you were describing, that second, that relief when you breathe in. You could be in a bad position, but you know that you're not, because you've got your breath, and that goes back to yoga as well. It's pretty much exactly the same thing. The metaphor I'd use would be that the world's got you in a chokehold, or the world's got your back, or your emotions have mounted you, and then what do? That's pretty much it, man. Yeah, it's awesome connection there. Yeah.
So when that happens to me, and I love that we made this connection because I can totally relate now. I haven't ever tried yoga, but you know, when I take those breaths, right? I mean, I can be in total panic and peril before then, but it's like I take those breaths and the stars just start to align for me, and I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do, right?
yeah, you feel it, eh? Yeah,
right.
And you would have rolled with your eyes closed. I do it all the time.
Yes.
And you just get you get that feel for what's going on. You don't need to see the person. You can feel their body. Exactly the same thing in yoga. I do yoga with my eyes closed, and that's so emotional. It's really, really crazy because it's just you're cutting off your visual stimuli and you're connecting inwards. You're going with the flow and picking up on this thing that, I don't know what it is, man, like an energy or something, and just let you go with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I think we just opened up a doorway here, right? There's a lot of different ways that you could connect with that, right?
Definitely,
I mean,
man.
it doesn't necessarily have to be yoga, but I do hear some commonalities, right? It needs to be difficult for you.
Yeah.
It needs to be challenging, right? It needs to be a spot where it's different than what you're used to in your daily life, and then you need to be able to receive it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah.
Wow.
That's really, really cool. I have often thought of that, and I guess that's why I'm drawn to both sports. And that's what we just described is something that I think about all the time, but haven't really put it in words. Yeah. That's cool.
It's cool that we just untapped that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, neither one of these things that we're talking about might not be available to someone that's, you know, in a farm community, for example, right?
Yep.
So it's really cool that we untap that so that people can stop and think about, how can I reach into that and get that for myself, even if, yoga or BJJ isn't available to me.
Yeah, that's right. So everyone's might have a place, might have a thing. And what my experience with ill-managed mental health in the past is that them moments of clarity, like if you're meditating or if you're rolling and you find that spot, that minute where the whole world is hugging you and you can't breathe, and then you're like, well, I can breathe, I'm fine, I'm going to survive this, is I've felt that, like fixing something. I've felt that walking. I've felt that doing lots of different things. And then sometimes what's hard is you try and recreate that. You chase it, you try and recreate how you felt in that one moment, and then you get addicted to something else. You might get addicted to running or something, and then you never find that clarity again, because in that moment your mind is free, and then you get used to doing it, and then your mind just goes back to being crazy. You're just changing the environment. Yeah, I'm sure you've felt that before. But yeah, exactly. If you haven't got a connection with someone that wants to roll or a yoga studio, there's always something around that could help you. Like therapy could be, there's heaps of online therapy now that could help you make the first step, that could unwind something in you, that could help you think differently, and that could be your thing. I suppose there's a million different answers to that, and yeah,
you're thinking now.
Yeah.
You're thinking now.
Yeah.
I think just hearing you talk, right? I mean, going from one thing to another. I think it's important for us as men to understand the reason why we do things, and the point being is, you connected with yoga, and it brought this sense of clarity. And now when you speak about it to men, you're speaking about it from that vantage point of the clarity and the mental health, and because the dangers of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they jump from thing to thing, they don't stay in what they're doing for long enough to really connect with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So yeah, that's I don't know where I was going with that, Shane, than
no, I get it, man. I get what you're saying, because what you just described, I've felt a million times. I used to be an adrenaline junkie that chased that 1 second, man. Like lots of people are, lots of men are. That's why we're always breaking things, and we're a little bit extreme.
Jumping off bridges into rivers and what have you. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, man. Whatever gets you pumped, eh? And then you go back and you do it again with you, be like, come on, dudes, let's go do this. And they all experience it, and it drops down a little bit for you, and you're like, oh, man. And I guess that's where you're always on a journey. You're always seeking something, always searching for the next thing. And then you find something that helps you, that you don't have to search for. It's always been within you, and you just have to receive it, and then it happens. Yeah, so that's a good segue. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, this is awesome. So 90 men, you said, that are coming to this thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. The most amount I've had in one class is about 15 at a time. Sometimes I've had none. No one's rocked up. But I try and do it every fortnight, so it works around my work roster. But the key is it's consistent. Like, I get the same people coming back, because my roster is unique. I work in a mining town where there's 7 or 8 different rosters. So whenever it lines up, the same people keep coming back and they keep telling me the same story. I would never have ever done yoga, man, unless you done it. And I don't know what it is, but I feel different. And I'm like, man, right on, that's wicked, man. Yeah, and so they pass that on to someone else. Yeah.
So explain what these miners experience down there, right? This is all underground mining, correct?
Yeah, mate, yeah. So underground hard rock mining is what I'm in. It's a giant big hole in the ground, and we're mining for different minerals. The mine that I work in, it's lead, silver, and zinc. It's a huge mine. There's tens of kilometres of road underneath there. The machinery is big. It's loud. It's dusty. It's extremely hot. It's a really harsh environment. But the thing is, Steve, is if you make a mistake underground, it'll cost you something. There's a price to pay. It might cost you a limb. It might cost you your life. It might hurt someone else. There's always a hectic price because everything's big, and it's underground, man. It's like not quite sure we're meant to be underneath there, you know.
Right.
So everything's going against you. And that adds up to workplace stresses. On top of that, minerals are worth a lot of money, man. So you get paid to dig these things out, blow them up, drill them, get them out of the ground. A lot of money involved, which puts a lot of perceived pressure onto people, which puts people in financial strains, and just makes workplace stresses a little bit more. You can't walk away from it. It's and on top of that, it's 12 hours plus, so it might be 12 hours and 15 minutes, might be 12 and a half hours a minimum every day. So you're spending half of your life under the ground. It's a lot of it's a lot, man. Yeah, it's full on.
Yeah, and then just the environmental things, right? I mean, if you're spending 12 hours underground, my guess is that you're not seeing the sun at all. So you got a vitamin D deficiency and, you know, all of these things that we're supposed to be getting as humans, you know, that lead to mental health type issues, right?
Yeah, exactly. That definitely leads on. And if someone is already on edge and they need an outlet after the 12-hour shift, they go home, say good day to their kids, wife, whatever, whoever's waiting for you at home. Maybe there's no one waiting for you at home, but then they're exhausted, they're buggered, so they might turn to unhealthy habits because they need a quick fix, something to connect them. But that's where a lot of people suffer with binge drinking and stuff like that, drug addiction, anything that's easy, quick, and they just need that fix, that connection to the society where you've just been disconnected from. And then you keep doing that over 5, 10, 15 years and you've got yourself in a bad situation. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting how you just talked about that, you know, connecting with the society that you were disconnected from. It sounds like a miniature deployment every day, right? Like a military deployment.
The similarities are huge, man. I served in the Army. I'd done 2 deployments. And when I first left the Army, I went straight into mining because the similarities were huge. It's full on. It's fast paced. You get to blow things up.
That's kind of fun, though. That part of it, right?
Yeah. But you're addicted. It's like we went to talking about at the start. You're addicted to the feeling of something, the adrenaline rush. Everything's trying to kill you, man, underground. And when you deploy it, it's no different. So you're addicted to that stressful situation. And that's why a lot of veterans go towards the mines. That's why I went towards them. That's why every single friend of mine that left the Army went towards it. It's high risk and high pay, man, and it keeps you on the edge. But that adrenaline wears out, brother, and then you got to do something about it, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, you know, you've been dealing with a lot of men outside of the mines, and you're keeping your job at the mines thus far, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Covering that stretch. So I mean, you're building building those relationships and inviting them in. So I totally understand that. But what is your, and not to mention any names here unless you want to, but what is your favorite success story from these men that you've encountered?
Oh man. Yep. So without saying it, without getting too emotional, but it's all good. I had a dude approach me, and he approached me a few times, and he knew I was doing yoga classes, and I worked with him, not directly, but I've been working with him for about 14 years. And he could see how much I'd changed. So he's seen the little increments change by change by change by change by change, where I went from a adrenaline junkie and someone that thrived for social acceptance to finding acceptance in myself and no need for wanting that extra attention. You know, he could see this change. It wasn't a something that happened quick. It wasn't something that you could just buy. It wasn't something that alcohol could fix. And I could see him getting closer and closer. And I didn't want to be preachy. I didn't want to say, this is what I do, you should do it. Because I don't think that's the right approach. And one day we were together, like we were lots of times. And he said, how do you feel? And I was like, man, I've been waiting for you to ask that question for a while. I feel awesome. How do you feel, brother? And he's like, I don't feel real good. And I was like, I know that. I could feel that. I could see that. But I've known you for so long. If I directly asked you that question, you'd be defensive. And you'd be like, what are you trying to fix me? What are you trying to sell something to me, man? And I'll be like, well, this is what I've done. I've done yoga and meditation. That helped me. Would you like to give it a go? And he's like, it's always the same. It's the same excuses that I thought about. Oh, there'll be people there. What if I can't do it? What if it's hard? I can't do that. I'm not flexible. And I was like, man, it's got nothing to do with any of the things you just said. It's got nothing to do, because I was in the same boat. I was at a point where I almost threw up just to go into a class. And I was like, come along with me. We'll do it together. Don't worry about anyone else. It won't cost you anything. Just come with me. And so I done a private session with him. He comes along, and we didn't even get to 15 minutes into it, and he released his emotions, as all strong men do when no one's around. And we shared a moment, man. And he's like, man, that's all I needed. I just needed non-judgment. I needed to feel comfortable. I just needed someone to lead me and show me how to do this, like whatever it is. And he's been a regular ever since. And he's changed so much that it's crazy. Every time I walk past him now, he smiles. If I observe his behavior, it's positive. It's not slouching. It's not his body is, it's heads up. He's stopped binge drinking, stuff like that, man. He's more connected to community. I know him personally, so he's becoming a better father, a better listener, a better leader at home, on all fronts. And that, now I'm stealing that from you, the the free front. So I love it, man. You can just see the evolution, and it's beautiful. But that's an example, and for that's just another example of how it's turned him around, and I see it all the time. Yeah.
I think that's I think there's a lesson in what you just said there too. You know, I mean, congratulations to your friend. I mean, that sounds like an amazing journey. Let's start off there. But you know, there's so many people out there today trying to be motivational and this, that, and the other. And you know, I mean, there's 3 or 4 names that I follow who are people who I will never talk to in my life, right? But there's something so powerful by, first thing that I heard is that you didn't want to push it on them, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to show your life and show how it's impacted you by your actions and all that. So I think that's lesson number 1, right? Whether it comes to religion, whether it comes to exercise, it doesn't really matter, right? Show the fruits by your actions and by how you act or how you live in society. Yeah. The next thing that I picked up on is all these people that are way up here that I'll never talk to. They're never going to really help me in my life, right? The person who's going to help me the most is the one who just took the journey before me, right? If you think about it as like mountain climbing, for example, the guy who's standing at the top of the mountain, he's not going to help me. It's going to be that guy who just took that step right in front of me that can lend his hand down to me to help pull me up, right? So I think those are 2 really important things in what you just said and how you helped this other man on his journey.
I love that analogy, Bran. It's wicked. Yeah.
I don't know if I do a lot of things right, but that's one thing I do.
Dude, it's
I'm
perfect.
able to correlate.
Yeah, no, that's wicked. You described that perfectly, yeah. Yeah, leading by example. Because anyone can download an app. Anyone can tune into a YouTube channel, and there's a million of them out there. It might help someone. Sure. But unless you can relate to it, then right on, yeah. That's 100% true. Well, that is for me. And that's for the majority of men that I know, yeah. Yeah.
And I love how you're still working in the mind, right? You're still working around these guys and going, hey, look at me, guys. I'm still a manly guy. You can do yoga and still be manly, right?
That's exactly right, man. Yeah, yeah.
So that's fantastic. Oh, man. I'm super excited about what you're doing over there in Australia. And, you know, I'm really hoping that the listeners here can just stop and think creatively, if I can get my English out here. Yeah. It is my first language, but I'm not very good at
that. I can draw pictures good. I can't talk good, yeah.
There you go. I'm with you. You know, get me in front of a whiteboard. I'll go to town. But, you know, it doesn't have to be with yoga, you know, and I want to go back to what we were talking about with the connection in between Jiu-Jitsu and yoga and just finding that experience, right? Finding what worked for you, going out there and living your life better, you know, once again, whether that's faith, exercise, you know, you strum a guitar, right? Want to share that with people, whatever the case may be. I happen to see that over your shoulder.
Yeah.
But whatever the case is, you know, use it. If you find peace in it, someone else can find peace in it, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, live your life. So, I'm sorry, I'm preaching to the choir here, Shane.
I love it, brother. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, so is there anything in this experience that we haven't gone over that you'd like to share?
I'd say one of the biggest things I got out of it was self-connection and believing in yourself. Because I love the analogy of the person that can show you the most is the one that just did it. It's a beautiful thing. But then you also have to take your own first steps. And I think that's when you learn the most, is when you're down and out, and then you put your left foot forward and then your right foot forward, and you come out of it, man. You're like, that's wicked. I just learned best lesson that I couldn't get from an app. I couldn't get from someone else's story. The person that done it before me just motivated me and helped me get there. But I took that step, and since I've been starting to do, since I've been on this journey of yoga, I've said no not many times anymore. I don't say no anymore. I haven't done it yet. I haven't learned it yet. I haven't experienced it yet. Or I'll do that soon. Like it's coming, you know. And just believing in yourself and taking any option that comes up, any opportunity, which is exactly how we got to this conversation, man. Through the connection of Mainstream and Ian Collier. But that's a whole nother conversation. That's where it got me. Yeah.
I'm with you. That's how I got out to your beautiful country, was just by saying yes to the invitation when it came.
Say yes. If you're unsure about it, figure it out, learn, evolve on your way, on your path there.
I want to kind of pluck a gem out of what you were saying again, too. You know, at the beginning of this, you were talking about, you know, I know because I was there. You know, you were talking about the emotional person inside of you and the struggles you were having at the time. And, you know, that's when your wife mentioned yoga. But then at the tail end of this, you also said you need to take your own steps. So, big call out for everybody who's listening, right? I believe some of the best leaders in the entire world come from the lowest places, right? Definitely. You look at me, I was, you know, in the foster system. I was an addict. I was looking at 36 years in the pen, right?
Yeah.
And by taking those steps and choosing a different path, we can regain all that, and then we can help others, because there's an authenticity about, you know, leaders like Shane and myself, and, you know, people who have struggled, right? We've been to those pits of despair. We understand what that's like, and we can help be that person on that side of the mountain who helps them up that next step, because we understand where they're at. So,
dude,
I think that was.
I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So yeah, you're saying it all. I'm just recapping it.
I love it. I love the correlation, man. It's wicked. Yeah. And everything you just said then described it beautifully. And having faith in someone that's been there and done that is a special thing too. Their journey is obviously different than yours, but when you're down in the dumps, man, I've been to some dark places, and when you're there, there's no answer. You're like, man, what do I do? But then there's something in you that it keeps on keeping on, and just like when someone's about to take you back, or they're mounted, or you know you're about to get choked out and you can still breathe, you're like, it's not all bad. It's all good. Yeah.
And there's, you know, going back to the uncomfortable portions of those, right? When you get totally uncomfortable like that, those normal situations that you're used to, they're not as uncomfortable as what they used to be, right?
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. And I think that fits perfectly in with your podcast, like Forged from Fire, man. I love that. It's beautiful. That's where it comes from, and throughout history, that's where it's all came from. All the hardest lessons have come from the worst mistakes or the worst outcomes. Someone's learned from it, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so wrapping that all back up into the Suicide Awareness Month and, you know, men's mental health. Don't give up, right? Don't give up, because you can be the catalyst for so many others, right? You just gotta, or I shouldn't say you just gotta. That's horrible. But keep on fighting. Find that thing that brings you peace, because that thing that brings you peace can bring peace to others.
That's it, man. So whatever you're going through, someone else is going through it, and it's most likely someone that you know. Being brave, being a leader, stepping out, saying, "Man, are you all right? Is there anything I can do to help?" You might get 10 people tell you where to go, but then that one dude, that one person, that one lady will say, "Well, actually, today I'm saying yes to help, and I do need a hand." And that one gesture could be the thing that saves someone's life, saves a family, saves anything. And I think you're spot on there.
I don't think we could have wrapped this up any better, Shane. The only thing that I got to ask you yet is, if someone is looking for something like this, where can they find you at? How can they get involved? How can they support you?
Yep. So my community is only small at the moment. It's Mount Isa, Queensland, Australia. And my company is Aquarius Yoga. My website is aquariusyoga.yoga. And that website will take you to all the information you need to know on where to find me. I'm also on socials, Yoga with Shane. And I partner with the Yoga Hub Mount Isa, who's Janine Luck, my mentor, and I'm so grateful that her practice even existed, because just like we said, she was the one that stepped before me and had her hand down and helped me out, as my wife did. So aquariusyoga.yoga, that's where you can find all the information.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute blessing having you on, Shane. Like I said at the beginning, men's mental health is really near and dear to my heart. I know a lot of men, that I personally know, who have shared stories about having, guns in their mouth or taking pills to try and end it and everything else. And, it's a crisis in America, and the numbers are the same for Australia.
Yep.
We need to do something about it, and I appreciate that you are.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having us on, and thanks for everything.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, brother.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the Forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the Forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the Forge.